What's up, everybody? Welcome to Hammerdown Motorsports. My name is Steve Fast. I hope you guys are having an amazing day. Right now, we are working at night in the shop because we're going to be getting our Copart build torn apart. Behind me, we have our 2008 Suzuki Reno. It came with some major issues with the timing belt. It's either broken or something is really messed up inside there because we do actually have our timing belt worn right through the cover and kind of visible for us to see. That's not a good thing. So it's time to start ripping into this car. Let's see what kind of carnage we can discover. So first things first, we're gonna make some room to work. We're gonna get this air intake out of the way so we can get at the timing cover and all the other stuff that's in there. I believe we have to take a motor mount off on this side, so we're gonna have to take this wheel off in the front and give us a little bit more room underneath there so we can get to the crankshaft. I believe we have to pull the crank pulley as well, and we're gonna get a jack underneath and make sure that everything is nicely secured and start tearing this thing down. So we got our Milwaukee 1/4" impact with an 8mm socket. We're gonna remove our top bolts for our airbox cover. It looks like our two back bolts here want to stay in the lid, so what we're going to do now is get a parts bag so we can start putting our bolts for the air intake system all in a labeled bag. So all the bolts that come out of each section are labeled in a bag and we know exactly what goes where when we put this all back together. Always bag and tag, very good policy. So over here I have my rolling cart, which has nice shelving on it so we can keep all our parts nice and out of the way. We don't have a bunch of parts all over the floor or anything like that. We can put the stuff that we're not going to use for a little while, like the headlights and the grill and all that kind of stuff, up on the top. And then the more sensitive parts can go in the middle. And if you had to, you could even put some shrink wrap around this if you didn't want to get dust or contaminants in it. And you can roll this off to the side so you don't have to have it all kind of crowding the car like I've seen some projects where basically everything that just came off ended up right beside where the vehicle is sitting and you end up tripping over this stuff. So this thing here is going to come up really big for all the projects that we're going to be doing here in the shop. So next we're going to grab a flathead screwdriver and we're going to get to the clamp that's on the top of the throttle body so we can get the rest of this intake off. Got another hose on top of the valve cover that's got to come off as well. These are just spring clamps, pinch them together and push them back on the hose so we can get everything out of the way. Get a little twist, it comes right off. So we do have wire in the back here. That removed. And our air intake system comes out as one big piece. So we're going to set that up here on the shelf. Now we can remove our air filter and we're going to remove the air box. So now to remove the lower part of the air box, there's a 12mm on the front. Then on the back side, we have a 10mm bolt. Our air box lifts right out. So let's get you guys in here a little closer. You can see the timing belt is basically hanging right out of that cover and even touching our serpentine belt. So I don't know what happened here, but it definitely was not a good thing. Most of the time these belts will break, but I've never seen one that was kind of run off like this. I'm not sure if this is broken or not. So it might be a good thing if we still have valves that aren't bent, but I guess we're not going to know until we get the head off. So the next thing I'm going to do is remove the serpentine belt, but first I want to draw out the orientation of the belt because I don't see a little sticker anywhere showing the way that belt goes, and I don't want to have to forget and go through the process of trying to figure that out later. So we're going to draw that out now, and then we're going to remove this belt. So I think right over here on the strut tower is a good enough place to draw this. If we need to, we can just take some brake clean and remove it later, but I think I'll leave it on there for the next owner, then at least if they have to change a belt, they're not going to have to guess if they do make the mistake of taking this off before they draw out the orientation. So now to remove this belt, I'm going to use my 0 offset because it kind of has a little lip that goes towards the inside, so the pulley's not really going to be in the way. If you use a normal wrench, they have a bit of an angle on them, and it's kind of hard to get a good grip. But we're going to stick our wrench down in below here. This is a 15mm. Pull the belt off the alternator first. Feel our tensioner snap back. And I think before I remove this belt completely, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this front wheel off, get the car up on a jack stand, so then I can kind of get down to these lower pulleys a little easier, and I'm not going to have to fight to get this belt out of here. First we'll remove the hubcap. That ain't good. And it looks like somebody cross-threaded one of our lug nuts. Not good at all. Better get the breaker bar. I do hope this isn't a sign of people that have worked on this car. They're gonna mess anything up and it's gonna end up costing me more money in the end. Yep. That's what happens when you just cross-thread it and try to run it back on and ends up snapping off. So now we gotta buy a lug nut and a new stud. All right, so now that we've got our wheel out of the way, we're probably gonna have to end up pulling that rotor and brake assembly all apart, just to be able to get down to the wheel bearing to replace that stud. Hopefully everything isn't super rusty, but I guess that's what we gotta do. So now we're gonna remove the plastic shield on the inside of the inner fender, and that should reveal all of our pulleys. So now our top bolt for this plastic cover is a 10mm. Over here on the inside, looks like we have a plastic Phillips head. One of the push pins at the center kind of unscrews to a certain point and then you're able to remove it. So now down below in the front we have a couple more of these plastic clips that have the little screw out center. You just screw it out and then they pop out pretty easily. But the one on the far inside is missing, so they actually added a zip tie, so we're gonna have to cut that off. Now we have one more 10mm screw up here. Which thing should be ready to come out. There we go. Now that we got our cover removed, we got our belt exposed from the bottom, and we can just kind of work it off the pulleys nice and easy and get the serpentine belt out of our way. And let's have a quick look at this belt. It doesn't look terrible, so we don't see any cracking or anything like that. And even though the timing belt ended up touching it at some point, I don't see any tears or anything on this belt, so we might be able to reuse it. So now we're back up top, and we do have this big motor mount here on the side of the engine. We've got some pressure down on the bottom of our engine now, so when we remove this, not everything's going to want to sag. So now we can go ahead and get our mount out of the way. And these 4 bolts on the bottom and the top 2 nuts are 14mm. Once we took out our center bolt, I saw the engine sag down just a little bit. So I'm going to put a little bit more pressure on our jack to kind of keep everything up in place, and then we can remove this mount. Just give it a little wiggle so we can get loose off the studs, and your whole motor mount comes out as an assembly like this. So next we have this 10mm bolt right here. Run that guy out. This little cover here just kind of slides up and out of there. There's these little clips that kind of go around this cover. A lot of these are pretty much already ready to come off. I think just due to the fact that this cover's pretty well been sawed in half by the timing belt. You can kind of move this cover forward already. And this cover is shot anyway. I do have a brand new one to put on. This clips out of the way. And if I look down in the bottom here, it looks like there's one more 10mm that's holding on this cover, so we're going to get that removed. And hopefully this whole timing cover will come right off. And as I'm ripping and tearing on this thing, which really doesn't matter because this is also garbage, right down in here, it looks like there's another bolt, kind of where the belt was hanging over top of it that I couldn't see it. So we're going to get that one out now, and this thing should be out of here. One thing that kind of surprises me is this belt is still on. It doesn't appear to be broken. I just popped it here off the cams just so we can get enough room to get our bolt out here. So with the belt tight, it doesn't really want to allow me to get in there. Yeah, we do have one more bolt right here. A little bit of a tight spot to get in there. The 1/4-inch ratchet, we got it. Kind of broke free. It's got me thinking that maybe one of the tensioners or the idlers inside here may have failed. I guess we're not going to know until this cover comes off. All right, we got our other 10mm bolt for the cover out. This thing is now fairly free. There we go. Wow, look at that cover. That belt did one number on that, that's for sure. It's pretty well cut 3/4 of the way through, all the way around. Everything off of all the tensioner and the idlers here. Oh, I see the culprit. We've got an idler. Looks like this is just the idler, not the one off the tensioner, but it looks like this one, the bearing failed and then caused the belt to walk off of the cam pulleys and then just wear right through that entire assembly. So we're gonna have to see. I'm pretty sure you can tell already we're out of time here. So it's probably not as bad as it breaking. Like if the timing belt breaks, you can smack valves so easily, but I guess we're not gonna know because I'm still gonna pull his head off. I'm still gonna check all that out. I wanna make sure this thing's 100% before I were to sell this car to somebody else. And I wanna put a proper head gasket in it because I know these are an issue, being that these are a aluminum head on a steel block. So we're gonna put a nice Velcro quality head gasket in this car and a quality gates, timing belt, all new pulleys, all new water pump, everything like that. So everything's gonna be brand new and should be good for many miles to come. Now that we got our old timing belt idlers out of the way, we got the damaged one removed and we got the other one removed, which the pulley had damage on it as well. I just put the hardware back in there so when we install our new ones, we don't mix it up with anything else. Now we're gonna go down below here and we're gonna remove our crank pulley, which is a 6mm Allen head. So what I've done here is just took a little breaker bar and I put a 17mm on the center bolt for the crank. And then this is gonna kind of ramp up against our frame over here and hold our crank while we are able to remove the bolts for the pulley. Now we can kind of see the position of our crank, and where that little white paint mark is supposed to be at the bottom for proper timing. So we're gonna turn that to where it's supposed to be and we can remove the rest of our belt. So one thing to remember when turning the crank, you're gonna wanna turn it in the way of normal rotation. So we just turn this one clockwise. Just turn it nice and slow and make sure that you don't have any binding or anything like that, being that our timing belt is not currently on. And it looks like it wants to stop right there. So we're not gonna go any further. We're just gonna leave that there. We'll line this up a little later on. Well, everybody, we did find the issue with the little Suzuki Reno. We have the failed idler as the culprit for the timing belt failure, and hopefully we don't have any bent valves, but you never know with an interference engine and what happened with this car, how many times they tried to turn it over with the failure and all that kind of good stuff. So we will be digging deeper into this car very soon. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, and as always, keep that hammer down.